Everyone called him the unlucky one. The day finally came when a heavy metal gate slowly opened, and he stepped outside carrying nothing but a small black nylon bag. His clothes were worn. His face looked older than his age. He stopped, closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and looked up at the sky. A tear rolled gently down his cheek. People passing by looked at him with pity. Some whispered, "What a wasted life." But they were all wrong. Because no one knew the full story. And before this story ends, you may never look at delays the same way again. Hello, and welcome to today's inspirational storytelling with Make I Talk. Here, we share powerful life stories that inspire hope, strengthen faith, and remind us that every experience has a purpose. Before we continue, please help us by liking this video, leaving a comment, and sharing it with your family and friends so they too can learn from today's lesson. Now, let's begin. Two young boys grew up in the same neighborhood in Nigeria. They attended the same secondary school. They sat in the same classroom. They studied together. They laughed together. They dreamed together. Everyone admired their friendship. But there was one major difference. One boy came from a very wealthy family. His parents owned businesses, drove expensive cars, and could provide almost anything money could buy. The other boy came from a poor home. His widowed mother struggled every day just to put food on the table. Sometimes he went to school without breakfast. Sometimes he wore the same school uniform for days. But despite their different backgrounds, they remained inseparable. Money never separated them. Poverty never destroyed their friendship. One afternoon after school, they decided to ride home together on a motorcycle. It felt like every other normal day. They laughed. They joked. They talked about graduation. The rich boy smiled and said, "One day, I'll travel abroad and make my family proud." The poor boy laughed and replied, "Just don't forget me when you become successful." Neither of them knew those would be some of the last happy words they would ever share. As they approached a busy road, something happened. A pedestrian suddenly crossed in front of them. The rider squeezed the brakes with all his strength. The tires screamed against the road. But it was too late. A loud impact echoed through the street.
Jesus! Stop! You don't kill him!
People began running toward the scene. Within moments, a crowd surrounded them. Some people shouted. Others pointed fingers. Fear filled the air. Before the two boys could even understand what was happening, authorities arrived and took them away for investigation.
Arrest both of them!
Both friends found themselves held while the incident was being reviewed. Inside the waiting facility, silence filled the room. The rich boy kept looking toward the entrance. The poor boy sat quietly with his head bowed. Hours passed. Then something changed. The rich boy's parents arrived. They spoke privately with officials. After some time, arrangements were made, and permission was granted for their son to leave while the legal process continued. The poor boy watched quietly as his best friend picked up his small bag. Neither of them knew what to say. Their eyes met. The rich boy promised, "Everything will be okay." The poor boy forced a smile. He believed they would soon see each other again. That night, one friend walked away. The other remained behind. Alone. For the first time in his life, the poor boy questioned everything. He wondered why life always seemed harder for people like him. He prayed. He cried. Then he prayed again. Meanwhile, outside, the rich boy reunited with his parents. They hugged him tightly. Everyone smiled with relief. They had already made plans for him to leave Nigeria that very night so he could begin a new life overseas. The family packed their bags and left for the airport. Inside the vehicle, they laughed. They talked about the future. They believed every problem had been left behind. But life had one more surprise waiting. Halfway to the airport, one of the tires suddenly went flat. The driver carefully pulled over. Everyone became impatient. The rich boy looked repeatedly at his flight ticket. He worried about missing his flight. The mechanic walked as quickly as possible. Then, without warning, a speeding truck lost control. It came crashing toward them with terrifying force. Everything happened in seconds. Glass shattered. Metal twisted. Silence followed. Emergency responders arrived quickly. They tried everything they could. But it was too late. The young man who had walked away only hours earlier never made it home. His parents were heartbroken. The entire community was shocked. News of the tragic accident spread everywhere. People couldn't believe it. While all this was happening, the poor boy knew absolutely nothing. That same night, he knelt quietly and prayed before sleeping. He had no idea that what felt like the worst day of his life had actually saved him. Months passed. Then years. Many people forgot about him. But he never gave up hope. Eventually, a new review of old cases began. His file was carefully examined. The evidence was reviewed. A decision was finally made. His release was approved. When he heard the news, tears filled his eyes. After so many difficult days, he was finally free. As he slowly walked through the gate carrying the same small nylon bag, an elderly man waiting outside recognized him. The old man looked at him with compassion. Then he quietly said, "Son, didn't anyone tell you? Your friend died the very night he left." The young man stood completely still. He couldn't speak. His mind replayed every memory they had shared. Slowly, he walked to a nearby tree and sat down. Tears rolled down his face. Then he whispered, "If I had left with him that night, I would have been sitting in that same vehicle." At that moment, everything finally made sense. The delay he had hated. The pain he had questioned. The loneliness he had cried over. May have been the very thing that saved his life. Sometimes we complain because God says, "Wait." Sometimes we become angry because one door closes. Sometimes we compare our lives with other people's success. But we don't know what God can see that we cannot. What looks like rejection today may actually be divine protection. What feels like a delay may be God's way of preserving your future. Never judge your life by someone else's timeline. Trust that every season has a purpose. Because sometimes, the greatest blessing is not getting what you wanted when you wanted it. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs this message today. I hope you join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for more inspirational stories that encourage, motivate, and remind us that God is always working behind the scenes, even when we cannot see it. Until next time, this is Make I Talk saying, stay hopeful, stay grateful, and always trust God's perfect timing. God bless you.